Today is not about explaining why we use broody hens or why we use incubators for chicks. It's about why we use both to maximise our success.
Welcome to English Country Life. My name's Fiona, and together with my husband Hugh, we're going to be talking about why we use a combination of both broody hens and incubators to maximise our clutch sizes. Now here we've got little Marshmallow, and she hatched her chicks a week ago, and we've got 3 other broodies incubating at the moment. But broody hens are amazing at raising chicks, so now they're hatched and they're a week old, Marshmallow will take care of them all through to the point where they become independent. So we don't really need to be involved. But incubators are fabulous at supporting the incubation and hatching process. And today we'd like to show you how practically we apply that by showing you some of the footage from Marshmallow's incubation period.
Let's walk through the process then and what we do with a broody hen. Broodies tend to flirt with broodiness for a bit. They're not quite sure, they feel a bit different, and Marshmallow is a first year pullet, which means she's not brooded before. So we want to be sure that she is stuck on those eggs before we introduce live eggs, because if she starts incubating and then wanders away, those chicks will die in the shell, and that's not what we want. So for the first couple of days, what we're using are these. These are plaster of Paris, known as pot eggs. They're artificial eggs. You can get rubber ones and plastic ones as well. We find these work really well, the plaster of Paris ones. And we will get her to try and incubate an artificial egg for a couple of days to be sure that she's sat still, she's only coming off to eat and drink and evacuate her bowels. And once we're sure she's ready, we're going to put real eggs under her. Real eggs from Thor, from these girls, that she can then incubate. And what we're going to do is we're just going to give her a few to start with, but it's important that all the eggs hatch on the same day. So we're going to start the bulk of what she's going to incubate in an incubator. We'll give her half a dozen, we'll put maybe 14 in an incubator. Then after 7 days, we can candle all the eggs, the ones in the incubator, the ones that she's been sat on. We can remove any that aren't fertile, and we can gradually build up the eggs she's sat on until they're all under her when they start to hatch. Our plans for Marshmallow then. We're going to give her 6 eggs to sit on, and we're going to put 14 eggs in an incubator. Now, I want to talk to you very briefly about incubators, and it's rare for me to come out and unequivocally say, do this, don't do that. There's pros and cons of each, you know, that's my normal approach. I'm going to break my normal approach today. Don't buy cheap incubators. They're not worth it. Seriously, either get a really good quality incubator or use a broody hen. Cheap incubators don't hatch well, they cause all sorts of problems, and they're a false economy. Don't get one. As far as I'm concerned, the gold standard in incubators is Brinsea. Ask around in the chicken keeping community, you'll rarely hear anyone who's got a bad word to say about Brinsea. They are default standard for incubators. They make them in all sizes from 7 eggs up to more than 500 eggs. So you'll find one that suits your size of operation. We find, as smallholders, that a 28 egg size is perfect for us. That means we can hatch enough eggs to make it a significant outcome, but not so many that we're absolutely besieged with them. And what we tend to do is use the 28 egg size in the Ovation range, and that's what this is. This one has been loaned to us this year by Brinsea, so thanks Brinsea, not a gift, just a loan. And it's the top of the range model, the EX model, and we'll get into what that means in a bit. The other thing I'm going to say is if you want to understand hatching and incubation, and I'm giving a little tour today over what we do, if you want to understand it in detail, just buy this book, all right? Seriously, buy this book. Hatching and Brooding Your Own Chicks by Gail Damerow. It's the book I bought when I really wanted to get into this in a big way. It is well thumbed and dog-eared, and it covers everything you want to know and need to know about incubating and hatching broodies. I'll put a link in the description down below to our Amazon store. Again, really, seriously, if you're even considering it, before you go out and buy an incubator, buy the book, read the book, understand what you're getting into, and it's not as hard as you might think, but when you understand what you're doing, your outcomes are so much better. So 6 eggs under marshmallow. We're going to put 14 eggs in our incubator, and because this is a 28 egg size, we could have different eggs for different broodies going at the same time. We can manage 2 broodies with a 28 egg incubator. I'm going to bring you in close, show you the incubator, show you what I like about it and how it works, and we'll put some eggs in, get ready for marshmallow. Here's the incubator that we're going to use for marshmallow's eggs. It's a Brinsea Ovation EX28. That means it holds 28 hens eggs. I don't propose to give a long talk about all the subtleties of incubation. If you want a video about incubation, let me know in the comments and we'll do one. But this is just about, I want to just hit the high notes of 4 critical things to think about if you're going to use an incubator. So number 1 is size. As I said, this is a 28 egg incubator, and that may sound like a lot, but I invite you to consider this. If you buy eggs through the post, they'll get joggled. The hatch rate will not be as high as using your own eggs. And our experience says you're often going to get somewhere around a 50% hatch rate from bought-in eggs. So you put 28 eggs in, you might get 14 chicks. But of those 14 chicks, half are likely to be cockerels. So actually, 28 eggs in, 7 hens out. So you often want to incubate quite a lot more eggs you're going to want to end up with as hens. That's point 1. Point 2 is temperature. The Brinsea unit thermostatically, electronically monitors the internal temperature and keeps it at the level that you set. And I have checked temperature regulation in the cheap imported incubator that we used and in the Brinsea, and oh my goodness, the Brinsea is so much better at keeping to the right temperature. And of course that mimics the action of a hen sitting on the eggs. The third thing that I think a lot of incubators don't do well is humidity. It is vitally important that humidity is kept at the right level. If it's too dry in there, what happens is that the membranes that surround the chick dry out and they stick to the chick, and that prevents it hatching well. If it's too wet in there, the air sac that the chick will need to breathe from cannot develop, cannot get big enough, and the chick will suffocate. So you've got to keep your humidity at the right level. This thing, the Ovation EX, has a humidity pump. And what it does is it draws water from a water reservoir that you provide it with, a bottle, and it electronically monitors the humidity inside the unit, and if it gets too dry, it pumps additional moisture in to keep that humidity at the right level. The fourth thing you need to think about is turning the eggs. Eggs must be turned regularly. If they're not, the embryonic chick will stick to the side of the eggshell, and that again will ruin your hatch rate. The Brinseas have this kind of a turning mechanism. It is, as you can see, quite a large amount of turn, and on cheap incubators I've found that is not the case, and often it isn't sufficient to actually give you a good hatch rate. So definitely think about egg turning. Now, all of these things you can manage for yourself. At a base level incubator, it may not have an auto turn facility. It may not have humidity control, and all of these things, you can manage. Our Ovation has 2 sliding covers in the base, and it monitors the humidity electronically, but it doesn't adjust it electronically. And I've got used to sliding those covers around to get the level of humidity that we require. But having a humidity pump is going to make it even more successful. So do consider this, because incubating eggs is quite an undertaking. Buying them in can be quite expensive, and in my opinion, buying a decent incubator will maximise the return on the investment of time and money that you make. I really am quite passionate on the subject of incubators. Seriously, don't waste your money on cheap ones. I'm going to put a link in the description down below to the book that we solidly recommend and to the Brinsea incubators that we use. They're a worthwhile investment, and it's worth doing. Right, I think it's time to put some eggs in. I'm putting the eggs pointy end down in the cradles, and each egg is being marked with an M for marshmallow and an I for incubator. And I'm doing that because we may use two of the cradles for another broody, and it's really important that we know which eggs belong to which broody so that they don't get muddled up because they're going to hatch at different times. And we will record in our flock book when we started the incubation for marshmallow, when the 7-day candling is required, when the 19-day period is when the eggs should not be turned anymore, and we should make sure at that point that they're all under marshmallow. Each cradle holds 7 eggs, but you'll notice there's a bit of a gap at the end. And when the cradles rock, that can jar the eggs just a little bit. I don't think it's a problem, but what I do is I make these little wedges made out of bubble wrap and sticky tape, and I just push them in, and then that cushions the eggs and holds them firmly against each other so they can rock without fear of banging into one another. Now it's Marshmallow's turn. 14 eggs in the incubator. We lift her carefully off the pottery eggs that have proven to us that she's ready to breed, and we'll replace them with half a dozen real eggs. And it's important to do this at the same time as starting the incubator so they all hatch at the same time. Then we lift her back on the eggs, and the broody hormones mean she just snuggles down onto our new eggs, and the real process of incubation begins. Hi, 7 days have gone by. We're in the kitchen with the incubator. You may be able to hear just a little bit of a background hum. Sometimes the microphones make that sound louder than it is, but I'll turn it off for now. Now that does bring us on to an interesting point. Where should you put your incubator? Well, for me, I would suggest you don't want external temperature fluctuations a lot, so I think outbuildings that are unheated are not very suitable. I would suggest somewhere in your home, but perhaps not in a room where you sleep or a room where you relax like you lounge. So your dining room or your kitchen is probably quite ideal as long as the temperature doesn't vary too much in your kitchen. We do keep ours in the lounge, that the little hum doesn't bother us very much, but just pointing out that it's there. Now what I want to do is bring you in close, show you where the incubator's at, talk to you a little bit about how I found it in use so far, and then what we're going to do, candle the eggs and check for how many of them are developing, how many of them are fertile, how many of them are viable. Let's get on with that. This is what I wanted to show you with this EX model. This is the water reservoir where the pump in the incubator can inject a bit of water into the incubator to keep the humidity up if it starts to drop. Now, over the time that we've been using it, that is all the water that it's used in 7 days. With our previous model, I would have had to go in each day and refill the internal reservoir. So this EX model has made my life a lot easier. Now, obviously, if you're in a very dry environment, it's going to use more water. But I think the point is that this EX model requires much less manual intervention than all the other models that I've tried of incubators. So whilst I was perhaps a bit sceptical about do I need a humidity pump? Oh my goodness, it's made my life easier. Right, the next job then is to see how many of the eggs that we've got in the incubator are viable. And to do that, we're going to use a candler. This is the candler we're going to use. It's kindly provided by Brinsea, and it's called their Ovaview model. And what I'm doing, as you can see, is turning it on and just showing you how it works. It's basically got 4 AA batteries in there, an incredibly bright light coming out of there, and then you get 2 different sizes of rubber cups that fit on the top. Smaller one for things like quail eggs, larger one for larger eggs. And in a dark room, if you sit the egg on the top there, turn the light on, you can see what's going inside. You can imagine it like it's a scan for chicken eggs. And if the yolk is developing into an embryo, you can see changes in size and shape. You can see blood vessels developing. Let's take a look, see how the incubator's done, see how Thor has done, see what level of fertility we've got. This is one of today's eggs. It won't have any development, but I'm going to sit it in the cup. I'm going to turn on the light, and then I'm going to turn the room lights off so we can see what an egg with no development looks like, and we can then compare that with the eggs from the incubator. This then is an undeveloped egg, and as you can see, it's pretty even in colour all the way down. For development, we want to see dark areas developing at the top, often with wiggly lines, which will be blood vessels developing, or dark dots, which are things like eyes developing. So let's take a look at the eggs from the incubator and see what we've got. Here's the first egg from the incubator, and I think you can very easily see the developmental difference. Now what I want you to look very closely at is this area here. Can you see that dot on the end of my finger? It's moving in and out as the contents of the egg move around, and beneath it you can also see blood vessels developing. So this is very definitely a developing fertile egg. And here's another. We can clearly see the line of development here, where my finger is at the bottom. There is a dark mass there that will occasionally move as the egg moves. And we've got good development going on in this egg, and thankfully in all the others. Wow, every single egg in the incubator is fertile. That is fabulous news, and it's not normal, to be fair. I can't think of a better advert for Brinsea Incubators, and I also can't think of a better advert for Thor, our stud cockerel. He's doing an amazing job, and he seems to quite enjoy doing his job regularly. Let's leave it at that, shall we? Now I've got one more thing to do. What I'm going to do is take some eggs from the incubator, and I'm going to go out to Marshmallow, our broody hen, and I'm going to swap the eggs that she's sat on with ones from the incubator. They're warm, she won't really mind, she'll snuggle back down on top of them. But that then gives me the opportunity to test the fertility of the ones that Marshmallow's been on, make sure she's not sitting on any dud eggs, and that she's got a full clutch to sit on, and that everything in the incubator is also viable. That means that there are no off eggs giving nasty gases either under Marshmallow or in the incubator. So we'll do that next. Come on, I know, darling, I know, but I'm going to have to move you just for a minute. Come on. I know. Here's some nice new eggs for you. We know they're full of chick babies. This is one of the eggs that was under young Marshmallow, and I think we can all agree that's definitely fertile. I'm intrigued by this egg. This was from under Marshmallow, and I think we can see that there is some development there, but it's stopped. So I'm not sure what happened there. Sometimes that just happens, that a fetus doesn't develop fully, but I don't believe that that one is going to go on to make a viable chick. This egg I'm less sure of. There's certainly development there, but it again seemed like it might have stopped. Now with Marshmallow being a young hen, a couple of the eggs may not have been kept quite warm enough to get them to fully develop. So I'm going to mark that one with a question mark, keep an eye on it on the next few days and check its development. Well, I've put Marshmallow's eggs into the incubator now. One was definitely not developing, one is a question mark, the rest are fine. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us a number of things. It certainly shows us that if there are any issues there, they're not with the cockerel, because 14 out of 14 in the incubator were absolutely fine. It's Marshmallow's first clutch. She's young, she's inexperienced, and we do find that that sometimes means that they don't do quite as good as a job as they will do when they've done a few clutches of eggs. I'm also, though, not trying to sit here and say to you, incubator's good, broody hens bad. Very much not that, because when it comes to raising those chicks, herding them into the coop at night, protecting them, teaching them how to interact with other hens, making sure they eat the right things, broody hens do a fabulous job. And I think what we've illustrated here is a combination of broody hens, but incubators and other technology to support them will get you the best of both worlds. Well, that was an unexpected result. All 14 viable, in the incubator, and most of those that Marshmallow was sat on, well, that gives us a problem. She's not big enough to sit on them all, so some are going to have to continue in the incubator. And trust me, the twists and turns of this tale are far from over. There's a lot more surprises to come on Hatch Day. So join us next time for part 2 of Marshmallow's story. If you've enjoyed today's content, could you spare us 5 seconds and give us a thumbs up down below? If you want to see the rest of what happens to Marshmallow and all our other videos, please click on subscribe and the bell next to it. If you've got any questions, comments or ideas for new videos, let us know in the comments down below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But for now, thanks for watching. Come back and see us soon. Take care.